Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage, and today we're going to do a fun little video. We do this a lot of times when we get a new project or a new car in. We love to do the mock-up. I think that's like one of the most exciting things of messing with these early cars. They're kind of like big kid Legos, and you can kind of mock some stuff up and move it around and make it kind of look like a car pretty easily. So what we want to do today is kind of just get an idea of what we're going to need or what we have for the 6-cylinder to get it back in the car. So Leland, as a reminder, Leland got this car with the 6-cylinder in it as it raced, and we pretty much got most of the big parts with it. But he then took the body off, had a cage on it, and he raced it with no body with a flathead V8 in it for a short time. Because of that, some parts getting moved around, I'm a little worried that there might be some things missing. The other thing is we're going to be kind of blending what Leland did and what the car had originally together to make it a little easier to use and also a little safer with some of the stuff we're going to do. So number one, it had a kind of like quick change gearbox in it. I'm not sure if we're going to use that. The setup on it was kind of sketchy. It had no clutch. It was just a direct drive with a jack shaft right to the crankshaft. I'd like to at least have a clutch in the thing, even if it's a hand clutch, to make it a little easier. We think we have the front motor mount, but we're not quite sure. So the goal with this video is to just kind of explore the car a little bit further, see if we can get the engine and trans kind of sitting in it, even if it's just with some wood blocks and clamps, and kind of bolt some parts on and see what we have, what we're missing. And then we can get a better idea of what I'm going to need, so while the car is off camera in storage, I could be working on finding any of the parts we're missing or figuring any of that stuff out. So let's play Big Kid Legos.
A little better.
There it is. Lined up anyhow.
Let's try and put a...
Here.
Probably want to go up here.
Got a good tilt a little. There it is. It started.
Let me see how it's going to lift. Okay.
So far, so good.
It's pretty
Oh, look at that.
Dang.
Look at that.
You want to grab that motor mount out of the... Yeah. Probably sitting, it might be sitting in the chassis still. All right, so we got the engine up in the air, and this mount here is what Leland told us he thought came off the 6-cylinder, but he couldn't quite remember. I mean, it's been many years since he took this out of the car. We can't really see how that would line up anywhere on the engine so far, at least. There is a bracket that was under here that I thought maybe had a tab or a bolt hole in it here that would have went through that mount, but it doesn't seem that way. And Steve made a good point that these ears are still the original motor mounts are still on the block. Why would they leave them on if it wasn't there? So we went back to the frame here, and there's a couple of little things we can use for evidence. So Steve also noticed that it was at some point 2 bolts that looked like they were welded here that could have went through, but there is also these little tabs here. They are pretty far back. Whether it was a V8 or a 6-cylinder, that seems like it's pretty darn far back, but it's hard to say. Now they're on the top and the bottom, so I don't know if there was rubber that went, that those ears on the block go in between them to get the engine sitting down. Not quite sure. So we're going to take some measurements and see where it might jive, and then we'll try and do a test fit. It's pretty easy with that engine hoist or the chain hoist to do that. So, but you can get a better look what's going on in here. There's the suicide mount. And yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So we can figure out roughly where the engine was sitting. That'll kind of help us connect the dots. So We're gonna take some measurements. Oh yeah, and it's got this cool ass Clay Smith cam. We gotta run the number here. Mike didn't get a great shot of it in the video, I think, because it was on the ground, but there is a Clay Smith stamping on the front of it, and we gotta see if we can run that number. It might be a regrind. It says 5G or something like that, or 5.3, and that might have been an original regrind, or it might be a regrind that's just original. Those numbers are original, but we'll have to see. So, see if we can get this thing slid into the car soon.
It's good. I'll bring the cord over and plasma this drum square. Wonder what it was held.
I don't know. Steve, the time has come. Now we have to address our lifting issue.
Yeah, it's not hovering over the frame rails yet.
Oh, we're gonna use the jack stand, the jack maybe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Looks like you're high enough. You're good.
There we go.
Good.
A little further, Mike. A little further.
Moving the jack stand out of the way.
You gotta come down.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Right, does that clear the firewall there?
What?
Back of the trans. Back a little more.
No, yeah, put it that way. We just gotta get down.
Yeah.
Let me take this off. Just give us a touch of it. Alright, go ahead, Mike. Okay, down. Okay, and Mike.
Touch your feet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And more.
Yep. Get it down.
Man. Just watch that steering box.
Yep. We have to get way down.
That's right. That's me. Crank's about 2 inches off of the front cross member there.
I was trying to clear the steering.
Okay, forward.
A second.
See if we can get that.
Part back, you mean?
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
I think that must be the way to do it.
Yeah, put
Set
the
the
intake
intake
on
on.
and see
I'm
where
gonna
it
set
lives.
the hood on too and see
Yep.
where everything jives together.
This will pretty much get us in the ballpark.
Yeah, it goes right there on the stills.
And it's just cocked here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I would take it. It probably needs a little bit more.
Yeah, it is tight again.
Although we might be too high in the air.
Oh, it's true, yeah. It's
That's true. Yep.
Because judging by where that mount is, I still think. See where we're at now?
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it needs to. This snout needs to go between the two of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely.
It's just this plate is right this second. And let's put this in. This will be the other thing that has to be where it has to be.
Yep.
Probably just smarter to start with.
still filming.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a pinhole.
Yep, I see the hose lines up with right there.
There's another 2 holes here. Side.
It's right on.
The center one here is roughly in. It's not. That's pretty much down.
This side's good.
It's probably tweaked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure everything didn't fit exactly the best.
studs have to go in exactly straight.
Yeah, it's the air cleaner's still hitting the cowl here a little bit.
Okay.
So it needs to come.
Well, I can't really go much forward more.
Yeah.
Is that trans? Well, I guess I can. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay, stop there.
Yep, no closer.
Now this could go.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to do, is get the engine higher, because now we
Gotcha.
have clearance.
Mm-hmm.
Now the scoop's up, you know.
Yep.
Now you can almost get the scoop on again.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the scoop might have been, these might have been up. They almost had to be for that box on that air cleaner.
Yeah.
But what's crazy is, oh, the hose from the water pump comes up here. Or wait.
Where's the bottom hose?
Oh, there's that water.
Is it in there? Oh,
In the
goes right
head.
to the head.
So this probably just went straight in. That might be another thing that'll tell us.
Yep. Let's just see what this says about the forward and aft location.
Yeah.
Not terribly far off.
No. What are we sitting on?
This has to go inside the steering box here, or the shock. Alright, this side.
Now it's seated. All right, so we got the hood mounted on, and everything's sort of fitting, as good as I think it's going to fit for now. This hood has been sitting for many, many years off the car and has kind of gotten out of shape, and there were some holes where they had just like zip screws run in, holding it into the grill in different places, and we got most of the holes lining up. We got the engine placement fairly close. You can see the carburetors are lining up for the most part with these holes. What we realized is those air cleaners that were on there, I don't think were on this car. There's no way that these air cleaners could fit on there unless the engine was like ridiculously high. Now I do remember Leland telling us, I think, that this engine was in another car when somebody else had it at some point. So that might have been on, that might explain why it has a flywheel on it, and those air cleaners, it might have been in a street type car at some point. And those air cleaners may not have fit that hood. So I think there might have just been like stacks that came out here possibly, because I don't see a way that that engine would sit as high as it would have to get those air cleaners through, because our radiator cap is protruding through here at this little scoop that they made. You can barely see it through there, and that's what that little scoop was for. It was for some room for the radiator cap. So if we go any high, the cap's pretty much touching there. So this is pretty much where the engine roughly needs to be. So what we're going to do is take the hood off, try and mount the cylinder head and the manifolds and headers, or manifolds and downpipes, if you want to call them that, on there, see how they line up. And then that'll give us a little bit better idea of what's going on here. We did get the radiator mounted in. That was pretty good because it had a stud on it, and that really helped us with location. So getting a little closer to kind of put the pieces together on this of where everything's sat. So pull the hood off and we'll start messing around a little more. I need like 2 bolts. All right, so we moved the engine around a little bit, and this fuel rail here kind of tells us where stuff needs to be. Oh, that's a little better.
Is it? Nice.
It's getting there. But I still think it needs to go back more because we're hitting on the, oh wait. Okay, that one threaded in. Because this bend is like you know, I think the rear end needs to go up a little bit. I got the second
Probably
one.
it's down pretty far for, because,
Yeah, so why don't we jack the back end up some? And yeah, because you can see the gap. Go ahead and look. A little more, right? Stop there. I have some clearance now.
nice.
So I don't know if you want to go see if we can find another block to put under that trans.
Yep.
You gotta have all these custom-made pieces to see exactly where. We don't know where the engine mounts are, but all the other clues will tell us exactly where it needs to be.
Yep.
Yeah, that's got a little bit of clearance going, wrapping right underneath there, so that's roughly where it wants to live. Okay, so we started figuring out some of the little odds and ends on here. So we got the linkage all hooked up, bolted down, and we noticed that there was only 2 throttle return springs here. Like, oh, that's weird. Well, I noticed that there's a little hole. It's going to be hard to zoom, but way down on the fin of the intake, there's a hole for a throttle return spring. There's also a hole for this back carb, but there's no hole in the fin for the front carb, and there was no spring, so there may not have ever been a spring on that one. The other thing we noticed is there's linkage that was still attached, and we were trying to figure out what that is or where it went. Well, Steve found one stud, one engine head stud that has a stud welded to it that, you know, has a little groove cut in it like a spring went around it. Well, we think this is what held that bracket, and then there is some original gas pedal stuff here, throttle, and it looks like, so Leland made this stuff, he told us this pedal down at the bottom with this linkage, he made that. But this throttle pedal has linkage that was probably pre-existing, has holes that looks like it'll line up with all that linkage. Or maybe it's this other piece here, we're not sure, but that looks like it might have been on there before. So we're gonna try and hook up with this stud and see if we can figure out where the linkage is, but everything seems to be flowing pretty good as we've been sliding the engine back, you know, just a little at a time and around. The fuel rail now fits down around the cowl. I have all these threaded in, they threaded in nice by hand, so we know all this stuff is fitting pretty good. We got plenty of clearance around the cutout here. So this is, we're kind of dialing in on where the engine should be sitting. And where normally I would look for the engine mounts, we were struggling with that. Didn't seem to line up. So we're using all the other pieces we have as the kind of indicators of where this engine needs to sit. So see if we can get this throttle linkage hooked up a little bit more, and we're getting close to fitting the hood for the final time here and seeing how it works with all this stuff. Let's see which is which. Oh, just like that.
Look at that. Oh, that's pretty badass.
That looks right. It's got white paint on the top.
Yep, that's pretty badass right there.
And the slot, the slit is cut. Correct. So let's see. Being homemade, probably one will fit better than the other one. All right, so I think we'll go with that, and then we'll put this other one back on. Question is, can we get the intake on now? So we'll find out.
Right, yeah. Well, it looks like they cut the flanges off the stock exhaust manifold
That's true.
and welded the pipes to them.
Yeah, it just, you know, things warp when you weld them, so.
Right, okay, yep. Yeah, right.
Okay,
Ready?
let's try that intake if you feel comfortable moving that around.
Absolutely.
Be the least clumsy you can be right now. All right? No offense, Steve. Just
I totally get it. I totally understand it. I will move slowly.
move slowly, calculated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got this.
Yep.
Pick that linkage up in the center. Yeah, the whole mess
Oh.
up. Okay. I think you pull the engine to work on this thing. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah.
That was that's the secret.
Yep.
Now that manifold is probably.
It's probably, yeah, gonna be
There
a
it
tight
went.
fit there.
There it went. All right, so now put this stud back on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is cool. Goober. There's about 3 pounds of brazing on the backside of this manifold. You just hold up on the manifold
Yep.
just so I can
Yeah.
let go of it. The amount of brazing they did.
Mm-hmm. It's leaking. Hit it again.
Yeah. Just fucking keep welding. To even fix that, oh my god, I'd have to. I don't know what I would do there, to be honest.
Nothing.
Put more braze over top of it. Keep adding up to keep adding to the sculpture.
Yep, make it 4 pounds instead of 3.
I can surely try.
Uh-huh.
I need another nut though, because that one was fine thread, wasn't it? Or no?
No, they were both coarse.
I'm sure this exhaust leaked very, very badly.
Yeah. I bet it was so loud you couldn't hear it leak though.
Yeah, I think that's the idea here.
Uh-huh.
Nobody knows how poor your exhaust system works if you can't hear anything.
Right, if it's 18 inches long, nobody can hear it anyhow. That would make more sense too. That pipe took more damage, and
Yeah,
that would be in the front. It would seem.
that's looking better. Yeah, that looks like it might be a winner. Yeah. That looks right. You know what I mean? Like,
All right.
they were like crossing over each other, and it's like they couldn't have been. The rest of the car is pretty cool. That looks way more badass and pro.
Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. You're right.
Now, good side. We'll add the headers to the equation and now make it even more difficult to put this piece on. We're close. This wasn't a historic piece, I'd throw it in the trash. Here's the frame. That. Make it slide it.
You were there. Lined up with the hole.
Yeah, I'm looking at
In the cow.
that right there.
Mm-hmm.
Is the hole. So I don't know if that radiator cap is the first thing you gotta.
You want to take the radiator cap off?
Well, it kind of tells us where it needs to be.
Yeah, it might be easier to slide it around just a little bit though.
Okay.
You know.
Behind that.
Yep.
Almost to go behind.
Okay, I'm good here on this side. Almost.
Gotta go behind that. It needs to slide forward to get past it. Like that.
Okay.
And then it's
slide it back
underneath.
in.
Now it's underneath of it.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's past it. Still doesn't quite fit over here. Okay, so I think that's down below now. That's pretty much the look of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just right there. We're just off a little bit, but if that hood wasn't hitting,
Mm-hmm.
just whatever stacks it had there, it must have had some kind of velocity stacks or something that's stuck up there.
Yeah, angle cut chromies. That's what it needs.
Yeah, you're right. I'll find a set of them, and looks cool with the exhaust and everything.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now it looks like an old race car. All right, so after a bunch of work, we were able to get this thing kind of mocked up. It was pretty cool, trying to do some detective work to figure out where the engine sat and how everything fit. And as we worked through it, everything started to make sense. Like when we first got the car, I'm like, what the heck was that scoop in the front for with that, the chrome scoop there? We figured out that the radiator cap just protruded above the hood line, so they put that scoop on there over the radiator cap. And different things as we were going, it all started to slowly make sense. We never really figured out exactly how the engine was mounted. There's some cut off what look like bolts or studs in the top of the frame rails that may almost line up with these factory engine mounts on top of the frame. That good chance that was somehow related, but they still don't just like land right where you would think they would land. We were I wish I would have started in the beginning with mounting the headers and the manifold and all that stuff and then slid the engine in, because that really told us where everything had to land, because the manifolds, stopped us from sliding it back too far, and the hood lining up with the carbs, that all kind of had to be where it had to be. And then obviously the radiator, that mounted up exactly where it needed to be. So we got everything sitting pretty darn good. And all these parts in this area of the car, I think we can, work with. There is some tight quarters in here, obviously cramming a straight 6 flathead into a little Model T that basically has stock wheelbase. It was a pretty big feat that they were able to do that. Some of the stuff in the back with the trans is totally not going to work. So I was hoping maybe we'd be able to use a stock transmission in this thing, just so it had gears to make it a little bit easier to drive and move around, but it's just not going to work. Pretty much the shifter is directly underneath of the steering box, so that is not going to work. Now, when this thing was mounted up, it obviously had a different setup, and maybe the shifter was further back or further forward. Not quite sure, but we'll have to take a look at all of that to kind of make a decision on what we're going to do there. For now, I was just trying to get a rough idea, get all the parts kind of back on the car or in the car. Number one, to give me a game plan. So this car is going to sit for a little while, probably at least a year or half a year, till we could really start messing with it, because we have a lot of other cars in front of it, obviously, and I'm going to have to do some more research. I don't want to jump into this car right away, because we're hoping to find some history on the car. And a lot of times people get cars that are old historic hot rods, race cars, different things like that, and then they just jump in and start modifying them or changing them or going in a direction, and then later on they find out that they kind of went the wrong direction. So I think we have most of the pieces of the earliest version of the car, but there is some stuff that I'm still a little curious about. We have some pipes that came with the car. They look like they would have mounted on the side here. We have a little stud where they would have mounted, but they don't work with these manifolds. And I'm hoping that maybe over time we can find some old photos from Kansas or Missouri or the surround, maybe even Oklahoma, where this car might have raced back in the 40s or early 50s, that will help us maybe go in the right direction or give me some more clues. So for now, I'm just going to sit on it, start gathering some parts up that we need and figuring out what we need to do. The hood, we think there was some sort of velocity stacks that stuck out here. All the different types of air cleaners or scoops that I have laying around, none of them really line up or work, so there may have just been some small like velocity stack type stacks that stuck out of here, or maybe it didn't. I don't know. Without having photos, it's really hard to tell. We got the rear bumper mounted on, the Nerf bars mounted on, all that stuff kind of fit. It was just all kind of tweaked and bent, which you would expect from an old race car that was a little crudely made and also was banged up when racing, and then these parts have sat around a long time and had a chance to get banged up and bent and tweaked, but kind of got everything back in shape. So it's pretty exciting to see the car like this. So I'm going to put the car in storage for now. Once we get the second story built, I will be able to get some of the cars to run and drive out of this shop up into the other shop, and then we can pull this car back out, sit it on display, and also I can start staring at it and get a better game plan when it's there in front of me every single day. So that's where we're at for the Blue Jay Special, which is what Leland told us this was called. And we're going to kind of go with that name. So if anybody has any history or knows anyone that knows about early Midwestern racing, dirt track racing or roadster racing, definitely pass them this video, and maybe somebody who has some old photos or knows some history on it. That would be really, really great. Thank you guys for following along. Appreciate it. Catch you later.